Ooh, I like the lighting in this room. I look tan. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. That's right, you've come to the right place. I might be in the wrong place. This is not my usual studio. I'm in Houston right now, just for this week, so that's why I'm kind of filming this episode, kind of on the go, but I have so much to talk about, and of course, since I missed last week, I have a lot of things to catch up on, and there's one big thing that I want to address a little bit today, but we're going to have fun in this episode. This isn't going to be there's not going to be a lot of, statistics, a lot of details, a lot of minute things. We're going to have fun in this episode. There's a lot of speculation involved, because there's a lot of rumors going around NASCAR right now, and we gotta talk about some of them because I am behind on news. Early last week, really almost 2 weeks ago at this point, some major news broke out of the NASCAR world when it was reported that the current NASCAR owners were potentially looking to sell the majority, if not their entire stake in NASCAR. And that's big news because NASCAR has long time been run by the France family. A lot of us talk about Brian France nowadays. He's kind of got quite the love-hate, maybe more hate than love relationship with the fans these days. So this is big news that NASCAR is looking to sell, especially in a year where, ratings, attendance are definitely down, and it's been highlighted to a higher level this year. People are talking about it a lot more. So it's interesting. Now, these are just rumors. NASCAR's kind of hasn't been super clear with what they're actually trying to do and whether or not they really are trying to sell all of it, or if they're just trying to sell part of NASCAR. Formula One technically sold to new owners just a few years ago, and things have changed drastically over there for them. And a lot of people, I don't know, I don't follow F1 very closely, but from what I hear, most people think their current format is, and the changes that have come the last couple years for F1 have generally been better than they were in years past. I might be wrong. Big F1 fans, let me know if I'm horribly wrong. But anyway, I only bring that up because that's another major racing series. Obviously, probably a little bit larger, at least in the global sense, than NASCAR. But NASCAR is big as well. And while it has been on a little bit of a decline, what does this possibly mean for the future? Could a new owner come in and clean house, completely change what we've kind of become accustomed to? Or will they stick with what the France family has instituted with the current playoff format and the way the teams and the way the schedule is? A lot of rumors have been coming out about how the schedule could be seriously updated in a couple of years when a lot of contracts end. So what could this mean? If you want my opinion, I have no opinion because there's so much up in the air. We don't know who could buy NASCAR, whether or not the majority of NASCAR even is really for sale, whether or not anyone's going to want to buy NASCAR for a decent price. There's a lot of question marks, but there's been a lot of people throwing around names, some serious, maybe some less serious, of people who could buy NASCAR. I thought I'd throw some suggestions out there and take a look at what NASCAR could look like if some of these major companies were to buy it. So I mentioned Formula One recently came under new management. What could NASCAR look like if, say, Formula One were to buy NASCAR? I mean, I could see this happening. This looks pretty cool. These look like Mario Kart carts. Gosh, throw some banana peels and red turtle shells out there. I think we got ourselves a winner. NFL, you're going down. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, but this looks I could see this happening. Man, maybe F1 should buy NASCAR. You never know. Honestly, probably wouldn't be the craziest thing that's happened in NASCAR this year. Or how about this? Coca-Cola could buy NASCAR. They already market a lot through NASCAR with the Coca-Cola racing family. We had Martinsville get snowed out earlier this year. Coca-Cola with them polar bears. Share an ice-cold Coke while you're freezing in the ice-cold weather. That could be their slogan. I could see Coca-Cola buying NASCAR, couldn't you? Elon Musk is over there on the forefront of all these new inventions. What if he buys NASCAR and it just becomes spaceship racing? I mean, goodness, he's got these spaceships that can self-driving cars, all these things that can do all these futuristic stuff. What if we just have NASCAR becomes a futuristic series? Have you guys ever played that game series Wipeout? That could be NASCAR. Elon Musk could pop right in. That'll be perfect. Oh, now, Fortnite's all the rage these days. What if Epic Games were to buy NASCAR? They might implement a Battle Royale NASCAR DLC. How about that? That could shake things up, bring a new meaning to whenever you get wrecked out. Oh, goodness. And now this one just seems obvious. Disney owns just about everything we love and cherish. Why would they not just go ahead and buy NASCAR? I could see that. Look at those ears. That's some serious aerodynamic advantage right there. No more worrying about the roof braces and roof flaps. Goodness, just bring Mickey ears on track. You're never going to have a car flip anymore. Safety would be out of this world. I mean, it just seems like the obvious choice at this point. Disney owns everything we care about. Just buy NASCAR too. Like I said, crazier things have happened this year. Anyway, I'm just kind of messing around here. I had way too much time to Photoshop things together the other day, so but anyway, some of those, honestly, I've heard rumors that possibly Disney could buy NASCAR. I mean, geez, I don't know what they do to it, but they already have the tie-in with Pixar and Cars. I'm just saying that maybe those aren't, maybe what I just said isn't too far-fetched, just saying. But anyway, moving on to some more real news. Another big thing that came out in the sports news world to this last week was the legalization of sports betting in the United States. And by legalization, I mean they've given the states themselves the individual rights to decide to vote on whether or not they'll allow it. Like, you know how like Las Vegas and Nevada already have gambling, and a few other states, now every state is going to be allowed to vote whether or not they yay or nay. And I don't know, I'm not a politician, I don't really know all the stats, all the demographics, but if I had to guess, I'll bet the majority of states will vote in favor of sports betting, just because it's another income revenue, and all these state governments, you know, they're always looking for more sources of revenue. And you know, there's been some sports, the NBA in recent years has been majorly in favor of sports betting. They see it as inevitable. They think it's going to be great for their sport. Some other sports I feel like have been more, you know, cautious, have been a little more reluctant to join the bandwagon. Some fans, some sports worry that it could disrupt the integrity of the game if you have gambling. I mean, I remember the NBA, what was it, like 20 years ago, there was a scandal where a referee got arrested for fixing games and betting on games. An NBA referee had that happen. That was like 15, 20 years ago. You know, a lot of sports leagues probably worry that something like that could happen again, or happen in their series, and obviously that is a concern. So does this help NASCAR though specifically? There's been talks that, oh, maybe they'll have betting windows at the track, kind of like you have in horse racing, you know? So if that were to happen for NASCAR, or to NASCAR, would it be a positive thing, or would it really have no effect, or be a negative thing even? And if you ask me, I'm not a gambler. I don't see myself really betting anything on any races. I mean, goodness, these days, if you're not going to bet on Kevin Harvick, why bother? You're just losing your money. But at least I think it could be a positive for NASCAR, especially in the short term. If enough NASCAR fans buy into it, because some people really think gambling is bad, and obviously gambling can have major negative consequences on people's lives, and that can be a serious issue for a lot of people. So some people might be kind of have a stigma against it for those reasons. But if enough people buy into it, this could help maybe solve some of the short-term problems NASCAR is having with famous drivers that a lot of people like leaving. Think about it. If you're a Big Dale Jr. fan and he's now retired and you don't really feel like watching the races anymore, hey, maybe this week you're going to bet on Joey Logano. Now maybe you got a reason to watch and root for Joey Logano. You'll actually have a rooting interest each week if you choose to bet or gamble on a certain person or a certain driver. I don't know how big of an effect this would really have on NASCAR's ratings or attendance. I don't know that it'll have a big effect, but I think if it is going to have any type of effect, I think it will be a positive one, maybe in the short run. It's not going to fully solve these issues. There's going to be plenty of Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., Tony Stewart fans that don't go to the races to bet on drivers, but for some fans that are still trying to stay interested in the sport, even though they're having a hard time because their favorite driver's gone, maybe this gives them a reason to root for different drivers. Like this year, since Matt Kenseth was retired, I know he's back now technically, but he has been retired the first third of this season. I've been, trying some of the NASCAR fantasy stuff for the first time. I never really paid any attention to it or cared about it, but I decided this year I'd try doing fantasy stuff because you can pick teams of drivers, and it gives me different names to root for each week. So that way, if I have Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and Paul Menard on my team that week, I can root for those drivers, and it gives me a rooting interest, so it keeps the races interesting. I think legalizing sports betting could have this similar effect, specifically in the short run here for NASCAR. In the long run, I think NASCAR's got other things they got to address if they want to help their attendance get back up and their views get back up. They have other things, and I've talked about all this before. I'm not going to get into that again. But in the short run, this could be a small positive. So that's my opinion there. So those are the two big stories I wanted to talk about, NASCAR potentially selling and the legalization of gambling or sports betting. Those are big things that came out in the last 2 weeks, but now I want to talk about some stuff directly as a result from this last weekend's race at Kansas. Kyle Larson, I addressed, had one of the best cars at the Kansas race Saturday night. Looked like he was going to win until late race cautions. He lost the lead, then Blaney got into him, and Larson kind of wrecked. He was able to actually drive back to, I think, a fourth place finish, despite having tons of damage on his left rear. So Kyle Larson's the real deal. But unfortunately for him and that Chip Ganassi racing team, they were hit with a L1 level, the typical roof violation penalty, loss of 20 points, a $50,000 fine to the crew chief. Car chief will be suspended for the next 2 races after the All-Star race, I believe. So it's a big one, but it's consistent with ones we've seen earlier this season when Chase Elliott had a similar issue, or I believe Kevin Harvick had an issue as well. This has become a trend this year. We've gone are the suspension issues like we've seen in the past, or the rear end alignment. Those don't seem to be biting teams that bad this year. But this rear window brace that's causing the rear window to bend in the wind and everything, that is biting a lot of teams. And it's unclear at this point, really, if it's intentional or if it's just teams skirting the edge and occasionally one race weekend, it might bounce over the edge inadvertently. That's what I think it is. I don't think any teams are intentionally saying we're going to cheat. It's just getting putting the brace as light or whatever they need it to be, putting it right on the edge to make it the fastest they can possibly be, but they run the risk of it breaking, and that's what happened to Larson. Larson said after the race that the incident occurred during the wreck with Blaney. NASCAR went back and looked at photos and clips from earlier in the race, and apparently, also what I've heard from some fans, apparently this was an issue before the wreck too, so I think that's why he definitely got hit with the penalty, and they're probably not going to appeal it or probably not going to have too much to say about it. So another big penalty hurts Larson because Chevy, he's been the one bright spot for Chevrolet this year. Hendrick Motorsports, like I talked about earlier this week, has not been their usual selves, and Larson's really carried the torch all year long. This is another setback for Chevy. I just don't know when it's going to end. I also briefly want to talk about Kevin Harvick because I didn't talk about him that much in my episode earlier this week because I don't know, I just forgot, which is horrible of me to forget because Kevin Harvick has won 5 of the first 12 races this year. He's on pace to win 15 races this season, and that has not been done. I'm trying to think, the most races I ever remember hearing a guy win, I think Jeff Gordon won 13 in 1998. I'm trying to think if anyone's won more than that since then. I'd have to go to the books and correct me if I'm wrong, but that means it's been 20 years since someone won as many races as it seems Kevin Harvick might. I posted a poll on Twitter kind of as a joke after the race Saturday night saying, how many wins do you think Harvick's going to get? And you see here, most people I think took it too seriously and said, oh, he's only going to win maybe, 12, 13, 10 wins, something like that. But realistically, I don't know, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets up into the high 20s at the way he's been running. If Kevin Harvick wins 25 races this year, I wouldn't be shocked. Like I said, this year's been crazy for NASCAR. A lot of weird things have been going on. Kevin Harvick winning 25 races might just be the icing on the cake. Obviously, Kyle Busch is going to have something to say about that. I talked a few weeks ago about how Kyle Busch was on such a roll. Since then, he's come down to earth a little bit, so he's making me look like an idiot. Come on, Kyle. I talked so great about you, and now you're not doing as well. What are you doing, Kyle? But Kyle Busch, maybe Truex has something to say. I don't know, maybe one of the other SHR cars. Maybe Hendrick finally figures it out. But right now, nobody is on the same level as Kevin Harvick. Kyle Busch is the closest. And Kevin Harvick, the moment Kyle Busch started to get hot a few weeks ago, Kevin Harvick flipped a switch and has blown everyone away. So he's making me look goofy, making us all question ourselves. But Kevin Harvick, I just wanted to give him the props he deserves because this man is clearly establishing himself as one of the, if not the top favorites to race at Homestead, and will likely be at Homestead. I mean, at this point, I feel like he's almost locked himself in with bonus points. Last thing I want to talk about today, really quick, is the All-Star race. The All-Star race is this weekend. I wanted to make this its own preview video, but I do not have the time this week, unfortunately, so I'm going to fit it in right here. You want my pick for the All-Star race? It's not going to be a very exciting pick, but I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. It's a short sprint race. Kyle Busch is a streaky driver. He's capable of turning it on a moment's notice. He's been consistently good this year. I just talked about he's been one of the best cars. Harvick's maybe the safest pick. I'm not going to go with Harvick. I think Rodney Childers and them are going to take this race as a chance to experiment, which means maybe they won't be running their best stuff, which makes me think that they may not be the favorites. Plus, with this restrictor plate being added on a mile and a half, we're not really sure how the race is going to unfold. Will there be a lot of drafting? Will it look like pack racing? I don't think it's going to look quite like it does at Daytona and Talladega, but it could definitely be interesting. We got some big names going to have to try and race their way in, like Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, going to have to race their way in to the All-Star race. Likely a couple that make it. I think in the open race, who had the winners of the 2 stages and then the winner of the race, I think 3 people are allowed to transfer, plus the fan vote, which honestly Chase Elliott will probably get. So he probably doesn't have to worry about the open race, but it's there. Matt Kenseth will be in the All-Star race. I'm excited for that. Maybe with the draft, hopefully things run a little bit better for him. I didn't talk about Matt Kenseth that much in this episode earlier this week because he did not run very well at Kansas. He ran, I think, low mid-20s most of the race, spent most of the race a lap or 2 down, got caught up in that big wreck at the very end. So Matt Kenseth didn't have a great run. He was definitely very disappointed at the end. Some of his quotes, one of his quotes was that he expected them to be a little more competitive than that. And I'm like, I was worried when Matt Kenseth said he was going to go to the 6 car. I'm excited that he's back with Roush as a Matt Kenseth fan. That's great. But that 6 car has been garbage. And I think a lot of people maybe had unreal expectations of Matt Kenseth. A lot of people said, oh, he's going to run top 10 right away. I said this in an episode. I expect him to run maybe mid-teens, high teens maybe, as for most of this season. His first race back, he was on pace for like a 23rd place, 22nd place finish before the wreck. So definitely maybe not as good as he wanted them to be, but I don't think they were too far off of expectations. The draft at the All-Star race this weekend could be interesting. And Matt Kenseth's running a snazzy paint scheme there, so we'll see how that goes for Matt. But anyway, my pick is Kyle Busch. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you're excited about the All-Star race. Let me know who you think will buy NASCAR. If it'll be one of these crazy companies I just talked about, let me know. Follow me on Twitter. Thank you to our Out of the Groove sponsors right here. Michael Harrison with the shout out, official sponsor. You too can be an official sponsor of the show if you want to check out that link down below. I appreciate you guys taking the time to keep this show moving and on the road. Thanks for watching, everybody. That's all I really got. Not too much else to talk about. I had a busy show, did a lot of talking in a short amount of time. Hopefully this episode doesn't run too long. Thanks everyone for your support. I'll see you again after the race, after the All-Star race. I'll try to have an episode up on Sunday. The All-Star race is Saturday night. I should have a video up by Sunday, but we'll see. So thanks for sticking with me, guys, and I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the races. I guess there's multiple races. The Open, the All-Star race. Enjoy the races.